Fresh off scoring 87 against North Carolina and now 21 games into the season. We talk a lot about the Duke defense, but how about this offense? Game after game, we're seeing more and more elements of this Duke team just simply being able to score the rock. It's pretty awesome.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you so much for being here with us today on Tuesday, February 4th, 2025. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on in the life of Duke athletics with a big-time focus on Duke men's basketball as the Blue Devils defeated the North Carolina Tar Heels on Saturday by a score of 87-70. The offense continues to put up gaudy numbers. So much fun to watch what they're able to do on that end of the floor. And we'll have a great conversation coming your way today with our very good friend, Conor O'Neill from Devils Illustrated, set to join us throughout the course of today's show. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free wherever it is that you get your podcast. Be sure to leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Like this video, share it with your friends, and also make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel as we get closer each and every day to 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. That's a milestone I cannot wait to celebrate with all of you guys for making Locked On Blue Devils what it is here today. So without further ado, Conor O'Neill is here with us today talking about the massive win for Duke. And in so many ways, we talk about the defense that Duke has played throughout the course of the year. I love it. It's not as fun and sexy to talk about as offense is. And so I figure that's where we'll start the conversation here today. I hope you're well, Conor. I hope you enjoyed watching that Duke offense up close in Saturday night's win.
I'm well. I kind of want to zig where you're zagging and say that Duke's offense was so good in part because their defense was so good.
I knew we'd get there, and that's totally fair.
Hey man, when you actually force turnovers, which this Duke defense does not do very often, like you think that their defense is so elite that they do everything well defensively. They really don't turn teams over that often. It's more about making you miss shots and then grabbing the rebound when they come off the iron or the backboard or whatever. But look, when you put Malik Brown out there and he gets a strip and dishes to Cooper Flagg for a 3-point play all within 10 seconds of checking into the game, your offense can get rolling and you can get going downhill in a hurry. And that's what we saw. The other part of it is, I mean, Duke shares the ball so well. And there are a couple times this year where it feels like they're oversharing and they're overpassing and they're passing up great shots to try to search for a shot that isn't there. But those are few and far between. They're so unselfish. It starts with their best player being the passer that he is with Cooper. Yep. But man, I think everybody on the team is a willing and decent passer. And it snowballs from there with the shot quality that they get.
Without a doubt. I mean, you look at what they were able to do. Shot quality is so much easier when you get those turnovers and steals like you're talking about and they get out and run. I saw earlier Jay Billis noting the fact that Duke scores 1.67 points per possession in transition in a game like this against North Carolina. That's insane that they were able to be that productive. And it was so many different guys like Cooper running the floor, making things happen. I could think early on of Cooper running up the floor and dropping it off to Proctor, who finishes above the rim with a dunk. Sion James got out and pushed the tempo a good bit. Conor even was doing that as well. But being able to set up so much of your offense running and in transition, that's been so awesome to watch this Duke team do, because they have had their struggles in the half court. That has also improved. They shot the ball really well against North Carolina, but anytime you can get out and run and get easier looks, you would think at the rim, you're going to be pretty successful.
Was that Proctor dunk the one that Cooper threw in between defenders?
Kind of threaded the knee. Yeah.
I didn't have any idea of how good of a pass that was until Sunday when I was watching highlights.
Right.
That I think came from the official account. But like, there are so many things that you can miss on press row, and I'm probably a little bit victim of my own doing. I keep a yellow legal pad and scribble down all kinds of play-by-play notes. I like to joke with Jordan about it. You know, it's scribbles. Like, it is legit scribbling.
What a display for our YouTube audience. I love that. Yeah.
But I did not realize how good of a pass that was. And to your overall, I mean, yeah, it's such an easier game when you can get easy offense, and it sounds simple. It's hard to do. The other part of the benefit there is when you get out and run in transition, the other team doesn't get out and run in transition. It's very rare that you're going to get a fast break and either score or commit a turnover or whatever, and then give up a fast break going the other way. Because you think about it, like a fast break, all 5 of your guys are not running down to the court on offense. You usually got a 3-on-2 or a 2-on-1, something like that.
Yeah. So
you've got guys back to defend. And that you could see that playing out early and often, and that's how Duke gets up 40-13. That's how they piece together a quick 16-0 run and then an 11-0 run in the first half too. And it was all kinds of dominant. I don't know what else to say. It just was that type of game.
Yeah, to your point about, you don't always see it, and sometimes you got to watch the replay after the fact to see how impressive things were. One thing from your perspective, being there kind of courtside, seeing it all play out, I missed some things watching the game on TV as it is, and you really don't truly appreciate what you see until the replays come in after the fact. Because thinking about some of these clean looks that Duke had throughout the course of the game, the first three-pointer in the corner for Proctor was a crazy skip pass across court from Cooper Flagg. And then I really enjoyed this past weekend getting the chance to watch this Duke North Carolina game with my dad. So many memories growing up watching this game with him. So awesome we got the chance to do that again this weekend. But he pointed out to me later in that early run that Duke had, Con Knippel's pass driving down the baseline to find Cooper Flagg deep in the corner for him to knock it down. I mean, some of these cross-court looks to make the three-point shots open, easier, in rhythm. I think that's one of the other big reasons why you look at it. Duke shot 50% from three-point range in this one.
Yeah, the number that I kind of got stuck on, and I made sure to mention in the story over at Devils Illustrated, was the previous two games, the Wake Forest game and the NC State game. Here, I have it written down so I don't get it wrong. The previous two games, it was a combined 24 assists and 26 turnovers. Wow. I believe the Wake Forest game was the first game all year Duke had more turnovers than assists. I think it was 16-14, and then it was 10 of each against NC State. Against Carolina, it was 20 assists and 8 turnovers. So
talk about overcorrecting. Yeah.
Sometimes the correlation between assists and turnovers isn't as close as basketball fans want it to be, but other times you can use that number and really say, like, Duke shared the hell out of the ball. Their ball movement was superb. I don't know if it could have been any better.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact numbers, but it feels like some of those turnovers were late when it was a 25 to 30 point game and human nature kind of sets in, and you're just trying to get to the end of it, fast forward to the end and see what the final margin is going to wind up being. But yeah, it was a complete course correction from those two games, and couldn't have happened at a better time for Duke.
Massive win for the Duke Blue Devils over the North Carolina Tar Heels, 87-70. Let's talk about some other things that stood out from the atmosphere and this game in particular. Duke getting set to take on Syracuse tomorrow, Wednesday night on the road. So we'll have that coming up in just a moment here on Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils today is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Looking for tickets to your next big event? Whether it's a concert, a comedy show, or a sports game, finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache. But with Game Time and Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals, so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. I've been using Game Time Picks for a little while now, and here's why I love it. The curated deals make it super simple to find great tickets at a great price. No more sitting through thousands of different options. The seat view feature is a game changer. Before I even hit buy, I could see exactly what my seat will look like in the venue. It's so reassuring that way. The best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Are you ready to make your next event even better? Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Game Time is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Okay, let's keep this thing going. JJ Jackson here alongside Conor O'Neill from Devils Illustrated. I got to talk about just the atmosphere because everyone loves watching this game. There's all this talk about College game day being here as opposed to a fun Kentucky-Arkansas game and Coach Cal coming back. The festivities start on Saturday with the Duke University student making a $19,000 half-court shot. Everyone's piling into the arena. You got to be there, Conor. What was it like once again to get to take in another installment of this rivalry?
Yeah, it's something that I never want to take for granted. You can feel when games are different at Cameron. The Carolina game always registers as that. The Auburn game earlier this year registered as that. The Arizona game last year, even though Duke lost it, that was a big time early season game. And yeah, it's the air is just different. Like you have a little more pep in your step. You talking to the security guys checking bags coming in. It's a little more like festive, and you're not just trudging in there for a 8:30 NC State game on a Monday night to grab the first one that comes to mind.
Right.
Everybody's a little more happy to be there. And so it just, I thought the Crazies were good. I kind of, not to throw too much shade, but I thought they crossed the line a little bit last year at the UNC game, yelling like, "I want to kill you" to RJ Davis, or "I hope you die." Something like it was something along those lines.
Not a good look. Yeah.
It was like an hour and a half before the game. It's like, you can heckle the guy as he's going through his pregame shoot around without telling him you want to end his life or something like that. I didn't hear any of that this year.
Good.
Honestly, it was a little funny to me, and I was cracking up. The second half, the Crazies, every time Carolina scored, it was just like, "You're still down 25," or you'd hear something like that. It wasn't like they were bored, but it was kind of like, we know the result of this.
Sure.
Let's fast forward to the end of this so we can go out and party and enjoy this instead of just sitting here through, a 24 to 28 point game.
Yeah, following your coverage too over on X at Conor O'Neill _DI. What's always fun for me is the TV doesn't always catch everybody there, but for you to note, hey, here is who's here. To think that once upon a time there was a Duke North Carolina game in which Barack Obama sat courtside. Insane to think about the magnitude that a game like this carries inside Cameron. And another game where we see Mike Krzyzewski back. Coach K left early. Like, you don't feel like that ever happens.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
I missed that.
The TV caught him leaving early. And Jay Billis, funny, said that, he had 42 years of having to wait until the final buzzer, and now he gets to beat the traffic. He deserves it after all the years he spent there in Cameron. So, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, if I have my tracker right, he's 8-3 since his retirement.
Okay.
The strength of record is not that great. Some of the wins have been against, like, he was there for LaSalle because he knows Fran Dunphy. He was there for Army. Obviously, he's an Army grad. He's getting better. Like, he was there for Auburn.
Right.
With Elton Brand. More importantly, Mickey has been absent for the last couple games that he was at.
Yeah.
And I think part of that was the timing. Like, I don't think Mickey was up to go to a 9:30 tip against Auburn. Yeah. One of those other ones, like Shane Battier was.
I remember
in town,
Shane Battier next to him. Yeah.
it was kind of funny to make jokes about, like, yeah, I guess when Shane Battier calls up coach and says he wants to go to the game, then Mickey gets to volunteer to stay home, or maybe that's a volunteer with quote marks.
Sure.
But she enjoyed it. I enjoyed looking down there. One of the timeouts when they were doing the former player intros, they had so many former players, they had to do maybe 3 of them. But one of them, she was clapping along. And then they announced Jared McCain, and the guys who were there recently always get the huge ovations because their classmates are still in attendance.
Right.
And Mickey went nuts. Like, Mickey was very happy that Jared McCain was there.
Who's not a Jared McCain fan,
Yeah.
That's great to see. That's awesome. Big time win for Duke as they knock off North Carolina again, 87-70. We talk at some of these numbers in the second half. There's a 17-2 UNC run. They shoot 64-65% in the second half. They won the rebounding battle, and yet it didn't matter, Conor. I mean, wow, what a dominant performance there from Duke.
No, I've seen some people. I didn't think we'd have to deal with this, but I've seen some people raise the issue of, like, Duke really let their foot off the gas. I don't know that matters. I mean, it was a 32-point game with 8 minutes left, 9 minutes left. I guess it matters from a certain perspective. You don't want Carolina to get close. I know if anybody had a 13.5 a bet ticket,
sure,
was given 30. I'm sure
getting a little nervous towards the end.
I'm sure those last 5 minutes were so much more nerve-wracking than they thought it would be for the first hour and a half of the game.
Right.
But
something about Vegas, man. They find a way to bring it closer.
Right. It was such a dominant and thorough performance. I don't know. I don't really see much of a problem with the way Duke closed the game just because of how the first 35 minutes went. And I don't know that anybody on the team or the staff really feels that way either. I mean, as dominant as it was, it's also unlikely that you're going to blow a team out by 30. Especially a team as flawed as Carolina is. They do still have some pride. Right. They still want to help themselves in the metrics department and that kind of thing. So,
yeah. And a lot of these UNC players are super talented basketball guys. Duke was recruiting several of them. Several of the Duke guys were recruited by UNC. I mean, they're going after the same type talent. When you look at these players, the roster makeup just is totally different. And watching this game play out, something I haven't really addressed in the days to follow, so obvious, the size disparity when you just look at these two rosters. I mean, Cooper Flagg alone, the mismatch that he has when Drake Powell's not even starting the game, and on the first possession, you've got Seth Trimble on him, and you're able to slip behind Sion James to get a cut right there to the rim. And then what Common Malawach was able to do for the Blue Devils as well, just being such an enforcer and in so many ways steering shots away from being there towards the rim for North Carolina, because the length out on the perimeter was just so exaggerated compared to what North Carolina is and the length that their wing players have.
Yeah, that 6 points and 6 rebounds for Common without any other real counting stats is so misleading for his impact on this game.
Right.
I mean, you can't overstate how much of a luxury it is to have a 7-footer that can go out there and switch 1 through 5, and you don't feel like he's a liability when he gets switched onto a guard. He's able to stay in front of RJ Davis and not give up a blow-by drive and not give up an open 3 because he's got to have his feet back on the free throw line with RJ out there with separation. He's and I talk about not taking things for granted. I mean, don't take for granted the fact that Duke has had 2 of these guys in the last 3 seasons. We watched it with Derek Lively, and I thought Derek Lively was the best defensive player in the ACC that season. And Common Malawach, there's an argument that he's not the best defensive center on Duke's roster right now, but he is an extremely skilled defender, and it's going to make him a lottery pick this year.
Yeah.
He does so many things that so few people in college basketball can do. The other part of it is you can't simulate it. You can't. Nobody has a scout team with a 7-2 guy that can go out there and move their legs and their feet like Common can. I don't know. I think Florida redshirting like a 7-9 guy.
Yeah, Olivier Roux. Yes.
I would want to see his foot speed to know if he can simulate what Common does.
Right.
It's fun to watch up close. The first time that somebody gets switched on to Common and they're trying to figure out how to attack him, because he doesn't give you much.
It's one thing for Duke to have Countdown to Craziness Hall of Famer Stanley Borden with those intros, who's a 7-footer in his own right as a walk-on, right? But like in those scenarios, he's kind of useless because Duke has Malawach. They've got
Stanley keeps leaving through the media room and giving me a fist bump on his way out. He's my guy.
Okay, I love it. That's awesome. Big time win for Duke as they knock off UNC, and now the Blue Devils get set to take on Syracuse. Pretty fun game coming up for Duke. Pretty fun game for someone like Malik Brown, who returns to a school that he played for the past 2 seasons. Let's take one more break, and then when we come back, we'll start to wrap up today's episode here of Locked On Blue Devils. Thank you so much for making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen and your first watch each and every day. Today, make sure for your second listen that you go and check out the Locked On ACC podcast. It's Alex Dono and Kenton Gibbs, and they're keeping it real and bringing you the truth about where your favorite ACC team stands within the conference. Find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever it is that you listen to podcasts each and every week. A reminder, coming out on Thursdays, we've got our Locked On ACC squad, myself and all the other hosts across the conference do our very best in our busy schedules to come together and give you great content across the ACC. Fun news this week, Leonard Hamilton not set to return to Florida State next season. We're talking the ESPN new deal with teams within the conference. What does football look like? All that more. Locked On ACC, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. So we're excited to bring Conor O'Neill back into the conversation for today's show as we wrap up our episode today. Duke goes for their 12th ACC win of the season tomorrow against a sub-500 Syracuse team. This isn't Jim Boeheim on the sidelines for the Syracuse team. It's been a tough go of it for the Orange this year.
Yeah, you get the feeling that they're trying to hold on for a big-time recruiting class next year. And we'll see if they get Donnie Freeman back. He's missed 8 games. He was on track to maybe be on the all-freshman team for the ACC this year, but he's missed a bunch of time. I mean, they were without J.J. Starling for the month of December, and that hurt them. I mean, they've had some bad injury luck, but they're also not as talented a roster as Syracuse has had, and it's kind of a weird team to study.
Looking at him, yeah, you think about Eddie Lampkin Jr., who's been there or around the block at TCU in Colorado. That's something Jordan and I were pointing out on yesterday's podcast here. 6'11", 265. I mean, that alone, you talk about the size disparity that Duke had against North Carolina and nobody truly being able to kind of match up with Malawach. That's a big body that Common's going to see there on the interior. And
he's probably going to present a lot of the same challenges to Common that Chad Venning did with BC. I can't remember his exact stats, but I think he wound up with around 16 or 18 points when Duke went up to BC earlier this season. And even though that was I think 25-point win, I mean, it was a 6-point game at halftime. Like, that was a tight game. Duke does have Malik Brown to counter that, though. I mean, that's the difference in the equation. They went up to BC without Malik. Now he's back. He looked great against UNC. Like, I kind of had in mind that if we saw him against UNC, it'd only be for maybe 8 to 10 minutes, and I think he wound up playing 16. So they'll have another counter to that big body. But yeah, I think Eddie Lampkin, and then it's just stopping J.J. Starling. He's gotten off against a bunch of people. He had 38 earlier in the game this year, one of the best scoring games of anybody in the ACC all season. So those are the two keys with Syracuse.
I don't want to take the approach of overlooking a team like Syracuse because I know that that's not what Duke's doing, right? They're going to put their full effort into
they're the second best orange team that Duke will play this week.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that everybody now wants to talk about the game coming up on Saturday against Clemson. Duke comes in ranked second once again in the AP poll, behind Auburn at number 1. Clemson just barely misses out on the top 25, coming in at number 26 if the poll were to continue through with where they were receiving votes in the rankings. But 2 road games, and in so many ways, everyone just wants to fast forward to Saturday to see what that matchup looks like. It's a 1-loss Clemson team within the league going up against Duke, who right now is in first place in the conference with no losses yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge game. And I mean, you think about it, as dominant as Duke has been in the ACC this season, if they win on Wednesday night and then lose on Saturday, they're in second place as long as Syracuse handles its business against Georgia Tech. But no, this Clemson team, I mean, look, I always say this, I probably said it before on your podcast, JJ. We can talk about the next game. It's like there's no harm if we look ahead or if fans look ahead. It only matters if 15 guys in the locker room and however many are on staff.
I get to be superstitious, and I need to tell myself I don't matter, because you're right. Whether I miss tip off, turning the TV on, or showing up a little bit late to the beginning, it has no impact whatsoever. But I guess that's the fanatic in all of this. But you're right. The 15 players, everybody on the staff, they need to be locked into what Syracuse is. The rest of the world, though, wants to go ahead and see this game on Saturday, because it's been so much hate around the ACC this season with their performance in so many big games. Like, can Clemson be the team that gives Duke a run for their money and knock them off?
If I'm taking the Clemson perspective here, I think they are the biggest threat to Duke. I think this is Duke's toughest remaining ACC game. I think Ken Palm backs that up with the percentages.
Yep, does.
It's an older team. I mean, Chase Hunter is in his 6th season. Ian Shefflin has been there forever. I loved them bringing in Victor Locken from Cincinnati. They haven't lost all that much after losing PJ Hall. And then they replaced Joe Girard with another Northeast transplant from an ACC school with Jaden Zachary. And I thought he was really underrated for BC the last couple of years. And he gives them solid play. And what he allows them to do, the best thing he allows them to do, is Chase Hunter is able to play off the ball and have more of a scorer's role instead of being the point guard and having the facilitator responsibilities. Like, Jaden Zachary can shoulder some of that in a lot of the same way that Sion James and Tyrese Proctor kind of share the responsibility of being Duke's point guard. And then Cooper plays a little point forward, and Con Knipple plays initiator. All that stuff goes into it. But yeah, I'm fired up. Like, I'm going down to Clemson. I always make a day trip out of it. I'll probably get home around like 4 or 5 in the morning on Sunday, but it's going to be a fun atmosphere down there. It always is at Little John, and it's going to be an intense game.
I'm excited to see it play out. Obviously, we'll have coverage for what happens in the Syracuse game here on the podcast, and I know you'll be doing the same over at Devils Illustrated. Tell people how they can support you, Conor, and find all the great work that you do.
Yeah, the address is duke.rivals.com. If you pop over there, you've got a couple different stories to choose from for some joyous reading, I guess is the way I would put it, about the Duke Carolina game. And it's really good stuff. I pride myself on putting together quality work and would love for you to sign up.
There's ACC football schedules that are being released. I mean, we're on the eve of spring football. I mean, you truly have got it all, Conor. So I'm a part of the Devils Illustrated world, and I want people to be a part of it as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it, JJ.
All right, we'll do this again soon, my friend. Be well.
Thank you.
That's Conor O'Neill. He's joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, and that brings our conversation to a close once again here today. Thank you for your support. As always, be sure to follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils. Subscribe wherever it is that you get your podcasts, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're back at it again tomorrow as Duke will get set to take on Syracuse. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you then. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.